Night storm at sea. The navigator spots a blip. Lightning reveals a vessel on collision course. COLREGS Rule 2. The duty to avoid disaster.
Welcome back to this explainer. You know, if you've ever flipped through the collision regulations, you might think it's just this rigid, mechanical checklist of who has the right of way, right? But today, we're tearing that idea apart. We are going to see exactly why one specific rule, Rule 2, is absolutely the essential anchor of all maritime liability. Okay, so picture this bizarre reality for a second. Imagine a captain follows every single written rule to the letter. They've got the radar on, they've posted a lookout, they technically have the right of way, and yet they still end up in a collision. And get this, they still get sued and they're actually found partially at fault. I mean, how is that even legally possible? Well, welcome to the paradox of Rule 2. It's the rule that basically looks you in the eye and says, knowing the rules, yeah, that's just not going to be enough.
To unravel this whole legal mystery, here is our agenda for today. The liability paradox. Rule 2A, no excuses. Rule 2B, the escape valve. Real-world collisions. And finally, the anchor of liability.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the liability paradox.
Think of Rule 2 kind of like defensive driving. You know when someone blindly follows their GPS right into a flooded road just so they can claim they followed directions? Well, that totally abandons common sense. In navigation, just like driving, the regulations are the floor, not the ceiling. Good navigators are absolutely expected to layer their own human judgment right on top of the rulebook.
Which brings us to Section 2, Rule 2A, no excuses. Exonerate. That word is a massive legal anchor. It's deliberately absolute. When legal drafters use the phrase, nothing shall exonerate, they are slamming the door on loopholes before anyone can even think to argue them in front of a judge. Courts use this to spread liability up the entire chain of command, literally from the watchkeeper all the way up to the vessel owner. It explicitly blocks that lazy, hey, I followed the rules defense, meaning 100% technical compliance does not clear you of fault if you left your common sense at the dock.
And that leads us to this incredibly powerful phrase buried in the rule, the ordinary practice of seamen. This specific phrase legally imports centuries, literally centuries, of maritime custom directly into the modern rulebook. It essentially demands that professional competence and generations of seafaring tradition completely override mechanical technicalities. It is not about what some textbook says. It's about what competent mariners actually do out there on the water.
So practically speaking, what does that look like? Well, it includes things like keeping well clear of anchored vessels, or yielding to vessels pushing against heavy river currents because, let's face it, they can't just hit the brakes easily. Or choosing to slow right down or even anchor if your radar suddenly fails in the fog. Here's the kicker. None of these actions are explicitly written out in the numbered collision avoidance rules, yet they are universally expected of any competent mariner under that giant ordinary practice umbrella. All right, moving on to Section 3, Rule 2B, the escape valve. Now, the crucial point here is the crazy tension between the two halves of this rule. While 2A tells you flat out that you can't use the rules to hide from negligence, 2B acts as this wild escape valve. It actually tells navigators they must weigh actual unfolding dangers. And if strict rule following would somehow create an immediate danger, well, you're actually allowed to depart from the standard rules. It is a really fascinating balancing act between strict adherence and dynamic on-the-fly flexibility. But how do you trigger this escape valve? It comes down to what the rule calls special circumstances. But we need to be really careful here. This is a very narrow, incredibly fact-specific gap filler. It is absolutely not just a convenient excuse to ignore the rules because maneuvering feels a little annoying or difficult that day. No, it's strictly meant for wild, off-the-wall situations that the original drafters of the rules simply could never have anticipated. Rule 2B explicitly tells navigators they've got to give due regard to the limitations of the vessels involved. We're talking size, draft, underkeel clearance, and vessel stability, like is the ship stiff or is it tender? Plus, you've got to factor in the density of the surrounding traffic. You can't just look at the geometry of two crossing ships on a radar screen. You have to consider the raw physical reality of those specific vessels in the water at that exact moment in time. But remember, and this is key, the rule uses the word may, not must or shall. Departure is permitted, sure, but it is not routine. So if you want to avoid liability, your choice to break a rule has to rigidly pass this three-part test. First, the danger has to be immediate and real. Second, the departure must be absolutely necessary, meaning it's literally the only reasonable way out, not just a more convenient shortcut. And third, it has to be completely justifiable based on the unique, on-the-ground facts of your case. Let's look at how this actually plays out in Section 4, Real-World Collisions. Take this 1989 incident in a Singapore harbor, for example. A tug towing a heavy buoy attempted to pass ahead of a fully loaded anchored oil tanker. Now, the tug cleared just fine, but the current caught the towed buoy, drifting it right into the tanker's bow and punching a massive hole in its ballast tank. So why does this matter for Rule 2? Well, because an anchored vessel has huge limitations, right? It can't just instantly fire up its engines and dodge out of the way. This incident completely proved that an anchored vessel's limitations demand much wider berths, based on the ordinary practice of seamen. So Rule 2 became the absolute anchor of liability here, even though there's literally no specific rule that just says, hey, stay away from anchored ships. Or imagine a really stiff bulk carrier heading straight into heavy swells. Another vessel crosses her path, and under normal rules, the bulk carrier should make a hard turn to starboard to give way. But making that turn would put the heavy swell right on her beam, risking extreme structural stress and incredibly dangerous synchronous rolling. In this case, Rule 2b allows and arguably requires the navigator to prioritize the ship's survival by making a smaller, safer turn instead. They are legally justifying a departure from a strict steering rule solely because of the physical limitations of their vessel in that specific weather. And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, the anchor of liability. This exact word-by-word framework is what courts actually use to apportion faults. Investigators are basically hunting for triggers like immediate danger or unwritten customs like ordinary practice to prove conclusively that technical compliance alone is just never enough to save you in an admiralty court. Rule 2 really is the essential anchor, simply because it binds all these other dynamic elements together. Ultimately, Rule 2 does something amazing. It ensures the sea is governed by dynamic human judgment, not just cold mechanical checklists. It elevates the whole profession of navigation from merely reading a manual to exercising true, time-honored seamanship. It's about being a sailor, not just an operator. And I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. Knowing that the rulebook is legally just the bare minimum, literally just the floor upon which ordinary practice is built, will you ever let strict compliance replace your own common sense? You've got to understand the framework and absolutely respect the rules, but never, ever let them override your own judgment out there on the water. Thanks for joining me on this explainer of Rule 2, the true anchor of maritime liability. Catch you next time.